participants a couple of more minutes before we get started here, but welcome. People, it looks like, are signing in. So we are at 3:01 and we have a tight time schedule. So I think we will go ahead and get started. So welcome to all of you who are here today for our very first Inclusive Learning Circles series. I guess it's the first one. So welcome. Today, we are really excited to be talking about AAC. And our topic today is going to be AAC in preschool. And we're excited you're all here with us. We wanted to introduce ourselves really quickly. We are a small but mighty team here in Placer County. This is our open access lead team, and we have our two coordinators, Leah Padilla and Lori Balsano-Wright, who are here today, as well as our other two content lead specialists, Jill McCann and Emily Desjardins. And I am Jennifer Wright, and I am the AAC content lead, and I will be hosting this first part and then turning it over to my wonderful colleagues that are going to be taking us through the rest of the time today. I see somebody has raised their hand. I don't know that I can address that, but hopefully Leah and Lori can adjust that or can address that. All right, well, really quickly, I want to just let you know, if you're not aware, what open access is all about. And we are one of the statewide special education resource leads within the statewide system of support. And open access is grounded in the foundational belief that with access to quality instruction, all students can engage, actively participate, and learn with inclusive settings. And what makes our open access project unique within the statewide system of support is that we highlight the importance of learning and participation for all through universal design for learning, assistive technology for educational productivity, and augmentative and alternative communication. There is a copy of the slides on a home-based document that you guys are going to have access to, but when you get that, this link here is also active, and you can read about a little more about our projects if you are interested in that. As open access is truly about access for all, we just want to make you aware that we do have an accessibility promise. We are committed to the following principles of UDL and to making this presentation and all of our related materials accessible as possible. So a few of the strategies that we have used today include simple backgrounds with high contrast text, digital and print materials available to you as participants. We have shortened links and QR codes available to access those materials. We've added alternative text to our images. We have multiple examples and non-examples, and we have opportunities and options for participation and feedback. So we're really proud of being able to have all of that for you. We are posting a home-based document into our chat comment area with links that you're going to need to access as we go through these series of trainings. And we'll also put the links into chat if there are any that come up that we want you to access throughout our session. Please feel free to use whichever format is easiest for you. Most of the documents, if they are actual documents, they will prompt you to make a copy of a Google Doc. But if you have any issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lori or Leah, and they can help you with that. And we're going to be monitoring the chat for any questions and comments. And we also would love to see your reactions if something resonates with you. So please make sure and use those. You can also use the Q&A feature. We may not be able to stop right when the questions come up, but we will try to address them at some point. We also may be using the polling feature or a whiteboard feature as we go throughout these different sessions. So just be aware that you may ask to participate in different ways. So with that, I would like to start us off with an inclusive welcome. And to do that, I would just like you all briefly to think about something that you might see or hear in a preschool classroom from your students who have typically developing verbal skills. And after you've thought of that, I'm going to give you just a second to think about that. All right, so now I'd like you to think of some of your students who may be in your classrooms who are experiencing more challenges with their verbal skills. And as you think of those students, I want you to think of how does that inspire you to support an inclusive start to the educational journey for these students, and actually for all students. And also ask yourself, shouldn't all of our students be able to say what they want to say, how they want to say it, and when they want to say it? So I just want to kind of start you off with those thoughts. All right. Well, then we are ready to jump in with our panelists. I have three panelists here today with me. They are three of the amazing statewide AAC regional leads from across the state of California. And I am going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves and turn it over to them. So Lisa, take it away.
Hi, everybody. So we are so glad to be here with you today to discuss AAC and preschool. My name is Lisa Lucifora, and I'm a speech language pathologist and open access Region 10 AAC specialist lead. I work with San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. Presenting along with me today are Rachel Hurst. If you can give a wave out there, Rachel. She is also an SLP and an open access Region 10 AAC specialist lead, and she too works with San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. Also with me today is Benjamin Bennett. I'm going to give a wave out there, Ben. There he is. Who is also an SOP and an open access Region 9 AAC specialist lead, and he works with San Diego County North Inland SELPA. Okay. So let's give you just a little bit of information about the topics we will be covering today. We will start with discussing the when of AAC. When is the best time to introduce AAC to an individual? At what age? And then we will move into discussing AAC strategies. And we will wrap up with discussing successes and challenges of implementing AAC in the preschool setting. So before we jump in, we first want to provide the definition of AAC. So Augmentative and Alternative Communication, AAC, is everything an individual uses to communicate or to enhance communication. Different strategies may be needed for different situations and communication partners, and strategies and tools may be combined to meet a variety of communication needs. We want all of our students to be able to show what they know and understand, to build independence and autonomy, and also to build relationships and social connection. So the when. Let's get started with this question. So ask yourself, how early should I introduce AAC? Think about that. And the answer is as early as possible. So research has shown that children with communication challenges do best when introduced to AAC as early as 12 months old. And it's between birth and age 5 that a child's brain develops more than at any other time in life. So, early brain development has a lasting impact on a child's ability to learn and succeed in school and in life. And that's why the use of AAC in preschool is critical. We know that children who experience communication impairments often have difficulties communicating with family members, teachers, and peers. So, for those children, AAC can support improved communication skills. And the earlier that we provide these supports, the better. It increases the potential for improving their outcomes. So, the American Speech Language Hearing Association, otherwise known as ASHA, also encourages the early use of AAC as it helps people of all ages. And there are no test scores, thinking skills, or other milestones that you need to reach before AAC can help with communication. So, for young children, it is recommended that teachers facilitate language development by providing augmented communication input, as well as opportunities to communicate using AAC, fostering both the receptive and expressive communication. Modeling the use of AAC in the classroom is an important component in supporting student growth in both the language that they understand and the language that they use. And this is something that should be supported all day long. So we all know that preschoolers may often present with some behavior challenges. So the use of AAC can help reduce frustration and support communication. So when they become frustrated, we might use behavior visuals to redirect them. And also they may use a form of AAC such as a sign, a gesture, a picture symbol to express an emotion or a need that they may not be able to communicate verbally. Use of AAC can also support engagement during whole group activities for students to engage with others. So context-specific communication boards or core vocabulary boards can be used to support communication within structured activities and also to increase in students' engagement with peers by commenting, asking questions, answering questions, greeting, and so on. So AAC can support early literacy skills development as well. So pairing a gesture and or picture with a written word can support a student's understanding, processing, and memory. So let's recap. When do we introduce AAC? As early as possible. In our preschools, we should be supporting and using AAC to improve and increase the use of communicative functions such as commenting, requesting, greeting, asking questions and answering questions, protesting and rejecting, and also turn taking. These can all be targeted during snack time. They can be targeted during playtime, while reading, during large, small, and individual instruction, and then also during those itinerant service times, such as OT, PT, AP, and of course, speech therapy. It can also be supported on the playground. So the picture that you see on the bottom left-hand side of the slide is a rendering of the communication boards that are being delivered and installed on our preschool playgrounds at SBCSS. So that's kind of an example of what we're starting to use on our playgrounds, and they are large, full-size installments that we're going to be putting on there. So that's just an example. So now I'm going to hand it over to Ben, and he's going to be discussing AAC strategies.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lisa. So in my little mini section, I'm just going to talk about strategies. And what I'm going to talk about is, listed here. This is kind of the overview. I'm going to talk a little bit about why focusing on strategies is more effective than focusing on the tools themselves. So if a child has an individual device or a personal device or, core boards around the room or whatever, everything is important, but when it comes to focus, I think it's, strategies trump tools in that respect. We're also going to talk about the strategies themselves. So we're going to talk a little bit about what core strategies. I'm just going to go a little bit from my own personal experience, and I'm going to talk about what strategies I've taught in the past and what strategies I teach now, what they are and why. And then we're going to go a little bit deeper into the new strategies that the current strategies that I teach now and talk about those specifically. Go ahead and go to the next slide. All right. So why are strategies important to teach? Well, I mean, this is the research. This is part of the research, but the reason that partner training and strategies would make more sense than tools is really that well, I'm not going to read this to you, but essentially it's a lot of it is about time, right? Strategy instruction really helps partners modify their interaction strategies in a short amount of time. Doesn't take long to do these. The second reason is that we spend so much time with the communication partners that we really want to make sure that part of that is partner training. And then the last reason, according to the research, is that partner instruction really should be viewed as an essential part of AAC delivery, whether that's assessment, intervention, implementation, whatever. So it's not just that, we go in there and we work with the child in therapy, or we, as maybe a specialist might provide a device and move away. We really, partner instruction really is an integral part of that whole process. So essentially, for strategies, there's no constant upkeep for the next iteration of the strategy, right? It's pretty much the same throughout. Whereas tools, they change a lot. But more importantly, is strategies are another example of universal design, right? Like I said, they're constant, they don't change, whereas tools are constantly moving. So let's talk about just, I know a lot of you are probably very, very well familiar with universal design. For those of you who might not be, let's just go to the next slide and talk just slightly about what that is. Some examples of universal design are things like curb cuts up here on the top left corner, subtitles, automatic doors, and handles for levers, rather, for door handles. So these, just like strategies, these are all universal, and they can be used with individuals of all ages and all abilities. So if you're going to teach strategies to a particular teacher, it might actually be very, very useful for another teacher who may not have a minimally or nonverbal child in their class. These are good things to teach overall. There's no constant upkeep, and really they're so easy that anybody can do them. So that's a huge plus as well. So moving on. Right. So in the past, the top 3 strategies that were taught in my district were these. So aided language modeling, expectant pausing or wait time, and descriptive teaching. So for anyone who's not familiar with any of these, I'll just give a really brief description of what they all are. Aided language modeling is pointing to the symbols as you say the word. I presume most of you are familiar with that. If you're not, then that's basic in a nutshell what it is. Wait time is giving children an extended period for the processing of that information, often up to 10, 30, 60 seconds. It can be really long. And then descriptive teaching is something that was really popularized by Gail Van Tattenhove, which is basically using core vocabulary to talk about anything. So, for example, if there's a science lesson and you're talking about Earth, you could say big place all live on, right? Instead of just Earth, right? Because going to Earth in a communication device might take, I don't know, 4, 8 hits to find it. Whereas those core vocabulary are usually pretty easily accessible. Those are the ones that I used to teach for different reasons. Aided language modeling, definitely hugely beneficial. Wait time, pretty impactful as well. And then descriptive teaching was a really nice segue from the core vocabulary that I really integrated throughout our district. So moving on, what we'll talk about though is after a lot of successes and failures, the three strategies that I now teach are a little bit different. Well, they're quite a bit different. So before I describe what they are, I want to briefly discuss why I chose each one of these. So the previous three strategies was kind of based on, just anecdotal, observation and, looking around at, who was doing what and what was needed throughout the district. But for these three, I really took a survey, both a visual survey as well as an actual survey. And I started to really take a hard look at some of the holes in the district's AAC implementation. So firstly, like most districts, having personal devices out and core boards and symbols available in the classrooms just was not universal. I didn't see it everywhere all the time. I think that's a pretty common problem, not just in my district, but it's definitely something that I felt was worth addressing. Let's see. I also noticed that children in a lot of programs were being taught and conditioned to follow a routine. That's super important, especially for young kids, especially for preschoolers. However, there wasn't a lot of communicative interaction based on that fact. So the last thing that I noticed was nearly all classroom staff was pretty much using verbal communication exclusively to speak to these, nonverbal and minimally verbal students. So the final reason I chose all these strategies just on a whole is because they're easy. I have taught these strategies to parents, paraprofessionals, teachers, and SLPs. No one's doing them all the time, and no one has any difficulty understanding how to implement them. So not only are they super effective, but they're also super useful. So let's talk about the first one. All right. So the first line of defense is whether you want to call it a strategy or not, is really just stressing that things must be out all the time. And it's intentionally redundant. I know always available all the time is pretty much the same thing, but it's like that for a reason, just as kind of a, please, please, please don't forget to do this. Um, when I teach these strategies, I really focus on three things. I focus on the what, so I give a brief description of what it is. I focus on the how to implement it in your classroom. But more importantly, I focus on the why. So why is the strategy important? And for this one, I'm not going to go into the how necessarily today, but if anyone's interested, my email is on that document that was shared at the beginning. I'm happy to go further, but for this one, the why is really to what I do is I try and draw a parallel between other disabilities and users who are minimally or nonverbal. So essentially, just like a blind student needs a cane or a physically challenged student needs their wheelchair, we wouldn't deny those students their aids. And we're not going to do the same, or we shouldn't do the same with our AAC users, but often that is the case. And so I think when you draw that parallel and you say, well, this is a disability that needs a support. And you're not going to take a child's hearing aid away just because they're at recess and they might drop it. Or because you're not going to take a child's cane away because they're visually impaired and it's straight enough. They can manage. So I like to draw that parallel to make sure that people really see it for what it is. So that's the first strategy that I look at. The second strategy is meaningful choices. And so a lot of classroom staff, they're offering choices, no doubt. But what I do when I teach the strategy is I go through the various choice types, and I help them realize how open-ended choices and providing a way out is always going to result in more communication, but going to the why, more independence. So that usually, helps a lot with the buy-in because every parent and every staff member wants their students or children to be more independent. And so for this strategy, I just kind of go through the continuum of anywhere from forced choices all the way up to just open-ended choices where you have no idea what the answer is going to be. I talk about within that continuum what's more meaningful for the children. And so for the final one, I talk about modeling, so aided language modeling, which is, like I said before, pointing to pictures as you speak. But I also make sure and put without expectations right there from the beginning. And this is something that's kind of gathered steam in the past several years, is that without expectations piece. But I feel like it's something I used to teach as kind of a supplement to the modeling portion. But now I really feel like it's integral and really needs to be part of it. Um, it's really not just about modeling, but it's more about exposing children to the act of visual communication. And so on this point, what I try and do is I make sure that the trainee draws another parallel to an infant's communication abilities. And so we don't expect a 6-month-old to speak for another 6 months. But that doesn't stop us from speaking to them. And so the same way that we do that, we want to make sure that they understand that this is a different mode of communication, and we just need to expose, expose, expose. And I touch a little bit in this about hand over hand and how, that really sort of confounds the idea of authentic communication with following directions and things of that nature. But I won't go into that now, but again, if you want more details on any of that, let me know. But that's a good place for that if that's something that you feel strongly about. So just as a recap, what strategies are the best to teach? I think it's whatever you want. These are the ones that I teach. Maybe that'll change in the next few years. I have no clue. But I found these three to be particularly effective now. And I think at the end of the day, it's not about which strategies that are good to teach the communication partners, but when, right? When to teach the strategies, which is right away. Because I think that if, what often we think of when we think of, communication partner training is a lesson on how to navigate Pro Loquo to Go or, how to set up a core board. But at the end of the day, it's really more about working with the children themselves. Students or tools rather can be taught pretty quickly, and there's a YouTube video for just about everything out there, which I often refer to communication partners too. I'll give them links and I'll say, feel free to look at that. But in terms of the actual strategies themselves, I will stress those all day, every day. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to hand it over to Rachel, and she's going to discuss some of the challenges and successes that we've had.
Hello, yes, I will be talking about just some different challenges and successes related to AAC and preschool, as well as just sharing some resources with you guys. Okay, so AAC in the preschool setting does come with some unique challenges, and here are a couple that I have observed. So sometimes AAC devices can be abandoned or go unused with either the classroom or the home environment. And when this happens, it does break my heart since a lot of time goes into matching the students with these kinds of devices. So I found that often this issue can be addressed through additional parent or staff training or collaborative team meetings. Another thing that can be a challenge sometimes is that it's important to gain buy-in from both the parents and the classroom staff, since AAC is a shared responsibility among IEP team members. So if the team is involved in providing input with us, that kind of thing, it's more likely to be successful. And then sometimes students present with challenging behaviors that make AAC implementation difficult. And it's crucial to work together as a team also for things like that. So you could collaborate with your school psychologist, talk to your speech language pathologist, or AAC specialist or implementer, just to work out maybe some different things that you need to do. Maybe the fix could just be a simple tweak in adding additional vocabulary, or just changing around some settings on the AAC device. So you never know, but collaboration can sometimes help us get unstuck. The next thing that can be a challenge sometimes is that it's difficult to find time in our busy schedules for AAC implementation. Honestly, making those communication visuals, the books, programming devices, doing assessments, all of this takes a significant amount of time. So I encourage you to advocate to your administrators for the time that you need in order to best serve your students. And if any administrators are here today, I just want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about AAC. We need your support. And then one of our final challenges that we're going to talk about today is training. Successful implementation of AAC requires lots and lots and lots of training. SLPs need to feel equipped to do those kinds of assessments. Classroom staff and parents need to know how to use AAC tools in order to model for students. And then I'd say open access has been crucial in helping a lot of us here learn more about AAC. So I encourage all of you to continue to seek out opportunities to learn more. Okay, we can go ahead and move on. So I can't talk about the challenges related to AAC without also talking to you about some of the successes that we've had as well. So here's just a couple observations that I have made when implementing AAC with my students. So oftentimes when a new tool is introduced, such as a core board or a communication app, I have seen some growth in the students' spontaneous utterances or their verbal speech. This is always exciting when this occurs. I know that not every student responds this way, but research does support that this really can help. So I think that that's really motivating when we see that happen. I've also found that it is helpful to emphasize a couple of core words at a time with my students and then build out from there. I've taken the same approach with some of my autism classes. So snack time and circle time are great places to just begin introducing AAC, because these are just rich with so many communication opportunities. One thing that we've done in my classes are like a core board, and then we've taken a core board and we've attached like fringe vocabulary to the bottom of it. So if it's snack time, then we'll have some pictures of the snacks that they typically request for, but then they have their core board also there to access that language too. And then another area of success has been just pushing group lessons focused on AAC. So often I'll choose 2 or 3 core words to focus on, and we'll do stories, and I'll model those core words as we go through those stories on large big papers, and the symbol will be blown up really big. I'll walk around the classroom, I'll show the symbol, so the kids are really getting that exposure to the symbols, so they can draw those connections and make those understanding. Let's see, we also have really big core word posters that we've been trying to hang up in a lot of the classrooms. And something also that I've recently been doing is setting my teachers' lock screens on their smart boards as core word boards. So that way they're always just up there, they're on display, even when they're not doing something with their core board, it's there. So they can just walk up and it's easily accessible to them. And then let's see here. Availability of tools is also just sometimes a roadblock. for successful AAC implementation, but my AAC team has focused on building up a really robust lending library full of iPads with communication apps, communication books, switches, and even mounts. And this just did not happen overnight at all. This took nearly 3 years for us to build up. But it's made a huge difference for our students. And I would encourage you to also, if you are in that place, start just ordering those things and taking those baby steps to build something like that up. Okay, and so we wanted to just share some resources with you to help you support your AAC implementation in the preschool setting. So here, I'll just kind of talk through each one of these. First, Simple Songs is like one of my favorite YouTube channels. And if you do work with preschool, you might be familiar with them. They have lots and lots of fun videos. Not all of them are necessarily adaptable to the core words, but you just have to go through. There definitely are a couple of them where you just have to look and find the right ones that you're going to be able to model the words that you're looking for. And then this other YouTube channel, it's called Speech and Language Songs. They actually do have a lot of videos that are focused on specifically just core words. So sometimes I'll add a video or two from them when I'm teaching group lessons. And then Talk to Me Technologies. That's communication boards for playgrounds, A-frame boards, communication devices or tools. They have free online courses and free downloads. The AAC Coach, they also have free downloads and resources. They have great training videos. Practical AAC, I know that's a pretty popular blog, and they have tons and tons of resources. Can't list them all, but I would definitely encourage you to check that out. And then the AAC Language Lab. All right. So those are a couple of resources you guys can kind of think about. I also wanted to ask all of you too, if you have resources that you feel like you would like to share with the group, please put them in the chat so we can add them to our document. Okay, so that brings us to questions. Does anybody have any questions?
Sweet. Thank you guys so much. We wanted to have a few minutes that we can do some sharing, like Rachel just said, of any questions and answers that you guys, or questions that you guys might have had. And hopefully you will add some things to the chat if you have resources that you love. And that way we can add them like to that home-based document and we can share them out with everyone. But were there any questions that came in or that anyone has that we could spend a few minutes talking about? Give you guys a second. I think if you raise your hand, I don't know, can they unmute and ask their questions? Is that possible or?
Yes, if we have anybody like Emily, I'm going to monitor that and I will allow her to talk. So I'm going to scroll up to her name and we'll unmute her.
Right.
I am trying to find Emily's name there she is, allow to talk. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Emily.
I just wanted to let you guys know that the chat is disabled, so no one is able to write in it. At least for me.
We will fix that for future times. Thank you. I was wondering
Yeah.
why the chat was so quiet.
That was all I wanted to let you know.
Sorry about that. So please feel free to raise your hand and I can monitor this way. So we will fix the chat in future times.
We have to say this is our first one. So you are all our guinea pigs for this first run through. So thank you, Emily, for letting us know that. Yvette has a question. Maybe.
Hi. I was going to let you know that the question and answers you could actually type in. So at the very bottom, I'm on my phone and the Q&A, you could click on the Q&A and type a question.
Ah, so that's what replaces the chat, basically. Got it.
And it looks like Barbara shared a resource in there, so we can add that to the home base. So thank you, Barbara, for sharing that. And then it looks like Andrea has a question. She is interested in hearing about your journey in developing a library of resources. So maybe Rachel, you can talk more about that. Were there any specific resources or strategies you used to bring your IT department on board? So if anyone wants to talk a little bit about that journey. Thank you, Andrea, for your question.
Yeah, so I know that with ordering certain apps, sometimes we had to sit down with somebody at tech services and really explain why and how we were going to use something in order to get approval. So I knew that was one thing where we definitely had to have some meetings to get a little bit unstuck sometimes.
I would say too, there's a document that did just come out from the federal government about the myths and facts of AT, under which AAC falls. And there are a couple of the myths in there that talk about the fact that your IT department can't dictate what your recommendations are for your students. So I think that is also a great tool or document to have kind of in your back pocket when if you're having any pushback, because truly the IT departments are there to then support what the recommendations are for our students. So that's a great little piece of ammunition to potentially bring up, because that's coming from the federal government about that. So if any of you haven't seen that, that just came out in January of this year. It's a great document, and it's very, I think, digestible the way that it's written. And we can also add a link to that on our home base document as well, because it's a great one to go through. But I know when we were building our library here in Placer County, we did have to have some of those same discussions. When we first started with iPads, our county was like, well, we don't do Apple devices. And we're like, well, that's what the communication applications are on. So this is our option. We don't have other options. And it did take a little bit of building that, I think building that rapport and educating them, like Rachel said, on what we were actually doing with these devices and with these applications. And I think doing that really helped them understand, and I think made their support a little bit easier then as we moved forward. I do know that we all still every once in a while run into trouble with our IT departments updating certain things and not letting us know. And if they haven't been backed up correctly, that's definitely another big education point when it comes to having libraries and having multiple devices that you're either lending out or you're getting. And I know that for funding of some of those resources, there were Medi-Cal grants that could be written to start a library. I don't know if your district's out there, Bill Medi-Cal, but that is an avenue of funding to explore that we have used and that we had used at certain times. I don't know if other people have anything to add to that.
I wanted to add, Jen, if you wouldn't mind. One of the things that we worked hard on too was developing a relationship with the IT department. And over the decades, finding a person or two who was really an ally within the IT department was very helpful. So, I think we delivered some coffee drinks and some smoothies and some it really worked on building some relationships as well.
Thanks, Jill.
And I might just add too, from personal experience, the key in my personal experience was to really have administrative buy-in from my own department. The IT department will, at least the way that my district is set up, they tend to fall in line with whatever their director, tells them to do. And When my director talks to their director, it's a much easier conversation to get things moving. So for me, the key was really talking to the person with the keys to the purse strings, and then having and then collaborating with the IT department to get what's needed and how it's needed. But in terms of like getting something started, I always found that having that administrative buy-in first is really really worked well for me.
All right, well, now that we know that the Q&A kind of works as a chat function in this format, if any of you had additional resources that you wanted to throw in there, we would love to be able to add to our list. These webinars, they are going to be recorded and people can go back and you'll be able to see all of the, you'll be able to see everything from all of the different sessions that are going to be happening in these series. So this hopefully will be a great resource for people who may have missed today to go back and see some additional information. So if you guys, as we're kind of wrapping this up this afternoon, if you want to go in and add anything else in that Q&A, we would really appreciate that.
And Jen, it looks like there's some resources being added. There's one more question from Emily, just about learning a little bit more about those amazing giant core boards that were on the playground. So I don't know if that was Lisa or if someone wants to talk more about that.
Yeah, I can help out with that. So what we did is I worked with the Talk to Me Technologies, which you have the resource in that home-based document. And it was actually a really easy process to do. You just kind of go in and you research and you look at what they have to offer. They have the A-frames, they have the vinyl poster-like type communication boards, and then they have the standing mountable ones. And those are the kind of the ones that we went toward. And so you can choose what your layout looks like. They have a basic template for your vocabulary for your core board, but you can go in and change a few things. And so like for ours in particular, there was an icon for home. Well, it's the preschool playground, so we don't want them requesting to go home because we wouldn't be able to honor that. So we changed that out with like classroom or, different things like that. So you can kind of go in and do a little bit of that. You can add some things. So for instance, we put our County Office of Ed logo on there. And then we also put our Open Access Region 10 lead team information on there as well, because we're the ones who kind of worked on that. But it really was a really easy process. They're really good at communicating back and forth with you to kind of figure out exactly what you want and then finding out how you want to fund the purchase for that. The only thing outside of what we were able to kind of do is that we have to find actually somebody to come out and install and put the mounts on it. But you get the mounting hardware and things like that. So we're really excited and we're really hoping, fingers crossed, that they'll come in soon so we can start installing them on our playgrounds. But yep, that resource is in there for you too.
And I'll add to that, if you're trying to do like a big one, even for inside a classroom, we've utilized things like Vistaprint, who seem to have really, really good sales every once in a while. And you can either get a big poster size or you can get one on like a vinyl board that you can blow up to a big size. I know the ones that are outside need to be a little bit hardier because they're going to be outside. I would mention too, though, that remember when and Lisa, I'm sure you guys have thought about this, but I've seen this happen where those boards are ordered for outside, but they're not like where the kids would be talking, and or they're really high. So especially when we're thinking about our littles, like making sure that they're down to their level so that we can actually be modeling for them and they can actually, if they so desire, to use it for some expression, that they can actually access it. Because I've seen that mistake happen, unfortunately. And then it's like, well, they're lovely, but the kids are like jumping. They can't, no, we can't reach them. So just thinking about that, where and how they're set up when they're outside. But that's awesome. Anyone else have anything to add? Ooh, there's some good things happening in the chat or in the Q&A. Thank you for doing that. All right. Does anyone else have anything before we start to wrap it up? I don't think so. Okay.
Oh,
Well, as we then move to close this first inclusive learning circle, I just would like you guys to think about a few things. So in the different material that was presented today from the panelists, I want you to think about one challenge that you've seen in your preschool programs that you're working in. And then think about one strategy, potentially one that Ben talked about, that you can commit to using with your students next week or tomorrow, if you're going to see your kiddos tomorrow. And then lastly, just reflect on your classrooms and your practice. And where can you either pat yourself on the back and say, yeah, these are good things that are happening. And just be proud of what you're doing already. And if there's something that you're thinking, wow, maybe I need to kick myself a little bit, well, then think of one of those strategies that you can go back and use tomorrow, and really continue to support your students as they're developing their language and speech at the same time. Oh, Ben, go ahead.
thanks. Just as a quick closer, I wanted to let you finish that. I just wanted to send a quick plug for CASHA, the Convergence conference coming up in the spring. I say coming up, but in the spring. I know there's a lot of really talented and experienced people in here, and I'm on the board of directors this year, and I think that I know there's a really, really dire need for presentations right now, and the deadline is coming up. And so if anyone has ever wanted to present, it's a great opportunity to put a proposal out there, because I think you've got a pretty good chance of getting in. I would absolutely encourage anyone who has, if you've never presented, I think it's a great opportunity to try it. If you've presented before, I think, it's a super great opportunity to do it. It's in Pasadena this year, so I know people here are from all over the state. So if you think you might be attending, it's in, what is that, LA County, I guess. Yeah, I think that'd be a great opportunity. So just wanted to plug that real quick, and I will let you guys wrap up.
All right, thanks, Ben. Okay, so just moving forward then, we would love it if you could use either that QR code or the tiny URL, or grab it out of the chat, and just do a quick little survey for us. Again, this is our first of this series, and so we're excited to have made it to the end, but also we would love your feedback, and so that we can, see what we can do better as we move forward through the next offerings. So save the date. The next one is going to be in October, and then there's also one in November. They're all, again, going to be from 3 to 4. And if you register with the flyer, you are registering for the whole entire, every series, every offering. Obviously, not everybody is going to be at every single one based on your interests. But if you do see something that's of interest to you, please definitely plan to join us. And we would love to grow this learning circle. So thank you very much. I want to say a huge thank you to Ben and Lisa and Rachel for presenting today on preschool in AAC. And I appreciate your time as well as your knowledge. So thank you very much. And if anybody wants to connect with us, these are all of our socials, so feel free to follow us. We do put out different Motivation Mondays and Tip Tuesdays, and we're having a lot of fun with that. So make sure you're following us. And if you have anything else that you'd like to add, or if you have any questions, please reach out to us. And Thank you again for joining us today.